Pests beware, your fields have heroes. The Pests and Predators podcast is brought to you by Field Heroes and is powered by the Western Grains Research Foundation. Learn how beneficial insects fight pests and protect your crops. Visit fieldheroes.ca today.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Friday, May 23rd, and I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. I've been away, and I'm back, and it has been a bit of it's been a tough transition, to be honest, to go from taking care of lambs and being outside to trying to hunker down and get used to my desk again and all the things happening in the world. But that is what today's show is all about. So it is Friday. We will have the issues panel. Kelvin Heppner will join me, as well as Marvin Slingerland with MMP. Sean Haney is off today, so you've got the three of us. Really looking forward to our chat. We're going to talk mandate letter from Prime Minister Carney. We're going to talk about inter-provincial trade, all sorts of cool stuff. Also on today's show, we've got a product spotlight with Jarrett Chambers of ATP Nutrition. So you'll hear from Jarrett and Sean in our second segment on that. And I know usually Fridays, every second Friday, we've got the beef market update. It won't be on today's radio show, but for those of you who have the podcast downloaded or listening to us on a podcast platform, stick around. After our last segment, you will hear from Anne Wasko and the beef market update. You can, of course, if you're listening to the radio show, you can check us out on YouTube or at RealAgriculture.com and listen to the beef market update there as well. All right, let's take a break, and we'll hear from Jarrett Chambers and Sean Haney right after this.
It's now time for a product spotlight, joined right now by Holly Little, Canadian Plant Health's Director of Research and Development.
As biostimulants are better understood on a technical level, they become easier and more acceptable to adopt.
We're hearing a lot more about regenerative agriculture. Where do your biostimulants at Canadian Plant Health, how do they fit into the bigger picture of soil health and sustainability as you've been discussing?
We've seen some great results when we've looked at soil health, and that's a good fit with our biostimulants in regenerative ag, because using our products can stimulate the microbiome, which results in enhanced microbial activity and abundance, in addition to the direct effects of the biostimulant on the plant. So this is really great because healthy soils support a productive crop, aid in nutrient cycling and nutrient uptake. In addition, healthier soils with a more active microbiome help the crop to resist abiotic stress. So you really get multiple modes of action, direct on the plant and through the microbiome, and different effects of those. Soil microbes and plants work together to support each other and be productive.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch Wheat Pete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight with ATP Nutrition. And joining us is the founder and CEO. It is Jarrett Chambers. Jarrett, how are we doing?
Great. Fantastic, Sean. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, hey, it's great to chat with you. Okay, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening at ATP. A lot of exciting stuff. And I guess I wanted to start off here today by just talking about foliars in general, because I think for a lot of people, they're like the secondary sort of reactive thought, okay? But there's a whole other side, being proactive and it kind of being a part of your core nutrient strategy. What do you find? Talk about this.
Well, I'm going to break your question into two answers. The one thing that foliar should not be looked upon as is a way to fix a problem, a big problem that you're having. If you've already got, the crop looks terrible, you try to put on a foliar, that's not what we're trying to target. That's reactionary. What we want to look at foliars is, coming to your question, Sean, is that it needs to be built into your overall nutrient management plan. Why should it be built into that? Well, first of all, we need to start with a strong soil program. But even with a strong soil fertility program based on a soil test, the ability of the soil to supply the nutrients in the right ratio to the plant does not always align. So this is where that plant is just starting its rapid vegetative growth stage at foliar herbicide timing. A lot of times the soil can't supply what the plant needs. So this is where you have to put on a supplemental application to complement what you're already putting on in the soil. In addition to this, there's a lot of times where we have soil limitations that basically just don't release it, even because of environmental conditions. We also know that sometimes we put on less nutrition we want for a wide variety of reasons, and foliars is a good way to top it up. And again, for the growers that are really going for it, and you got a perfectly balanced plant, now good foliar early on can drive productivity. There's a lot of other reasons, but those are just a few of them.
Yeah, and because we're being proactive, it kind of same concept is like starter fertilizer, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think you nailed it. A starter fertilizer gives that plant a little bit of start before it can access the fertilizer bed. What we're trying to do with a foliar, we call it a second opportunity of starter fertilizer. Yeah. We want to give enough nutrition to the plant for 7 to 10 days. That's it. So let's put on the right amount, the right products, and the right ratios to feed that plant at that vegetative stage for 7 to 10 days. That's it.
Okay, so we're kind of
that's going to drive it. Exactly. I mean, if we think about again, we're not all world record growers, but if we think about the world record growers of all the major crops in the world, one of their key pieces is little and often in-season nutrition on a regular basis to complement what they're doing in the soil. So that is exactly what we're looking at, little and often.
And the principle here applies to all the major crop types in the US and in Canada. But the nutrients we're targeting or we're trying to deal with, that's going to depend on the crop. That's going to be different.
Absolutely. You nailed it. So I'll just say yes. It works for all these crops. The targeted nutrient is going to be dependent on what the crop is. The other variable in there, Sean, is also what does your soil look like and what is your most common deficiency in the soil? And we do that through a tissue test and a soil test. So that's where you tweak it. If you don't have a tissue test or soil test, then that's where we at ATP, we recommend a complete multi-nutrient product, like a relief product, to kind of get it right 80% of the time, because we know that's what the plant needs at that stage.
That's interesting, because I think one of the misconceptions are that are out there, and there's probably a number of them you can hit on them, but is that, well, I don't need to do a soil test because I'm just going to do a tissue test in season and see what I'm kind of missing. Then I'll deal with it through a foliar. But you're saying do that soil test. So that I think that's kind of a misconception for some people.
Exactly. Like, again, we have the seed test. That's another talk. Let's be sure we got our seeds. The soil test, we're going to know what we're going to be out of balance, potentially. And then the tissue test, a lot of times, is almost a report card on how we did on our soil fertility program. But again, if we've overlooked something, then here's a chance to fix it quickly. And again, with these real-time tissue test results with NutriScan, we can correct it right away if needs to be.
Yeah, and the NutriScan, that's a way that we measure the foliar nutrient level, right? Or
exactly.
the tissue test.
Exactly. It measures the nutritional status in the plant in under 2 minutes, and you know exactly what you're looking at. And if you do all these tests, you're never going to be surprised. Now we can stay on this proactive approach that you're talking about, Sean. It's just, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Oh, that's a little bit of a tweak because Mother Nature got too cold or too wet or too dry. So I was thinking that it's now too dry, so maybe we're going to be out of balance on phosphorus and zinc. And the tissue test says, we're out of balance on phosphorus and zinc. No problem. Let's get on it right today.
If somebody wants more information on the great lineup of ATP nutrition products, they talk to the local dealer. Is just some website materials they can look at too?
Yeah, you can also go to our website at atpag.com. We can look under our products. You can see all of our relief products, our kinetic products, the Impel products, energy products, long list of stuff. And there's lots of videos and blogs to learn more about all these nutrients and all these factors and ways to manage plant nutrition.
Great stuff. Some great options there for growers in both the U.S. and in Canada. Hey, Jarrett, thanks for joining us here today. Appreciate it.
Alrighty. Thanks a lot, Sean, for having me.
We'll be right back on RealAg Radio right after this.
Find everything you need for outstanding weed control in your wheat and barley from the cross-spectrum herbicide experts at Corteva. Corteva is proud to offer a wide selection of cross-spectrum herbicides for maximum convenience, effective resistance management, and customized control of your toughest grassy and broadleaf weeds. No matter what kind of weed challenges you're experiencing, we've got the right fit for your farm. Visit corteva.ca to learn more.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. And before I bring in the panel, if I could get my words out today, pests beware, your fields have heroes. The Pests and Predators podcast is brought to you by Field Heroes and is powered by the Western Grains Research Foundation. Learn how beneficial insects fight pests and protect your crops. Visit fieldheroes.ca today. All right. Well, they may not be field heroes, but there's something along those lines. We've got today's issues panel, Kelvin Heppner out of Altona, Manitoba. Kelvin, how are the fields? Are they moist?
They are, still on the moist side. We had 2.5 inches of rain here, maybe something like that over the last week. So yeah, plenty of moisture and good timing, and still seeing some operator errors show up as the crop comes up. So that's too bad. But we're in a good moisture situation right now, and a lot of seeding has happened. Much of Western Canada is ahead of schedule in getting stuff in the ground. In this area, largely everything except the last soybeans and edible beans are in the ground already and coming along. So now we keep our fingers crossed that the flea beetles don't make us make any reseed decisions on the canola, but otherwise things are looking all right in this neck of the woods.
An operator error. Who are we blaming? The neighbor, or is it you?
Well, our neighbor, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's
somebody else, but it's Kelvin.
Yeah.
Okay. It happens. And, I've heard though, timely rain covers up a lot of sins. So just cross your fingers for timely rain, and no one will know, and I hope it's not the field right against the road. Also joining us today on the Issues Panel is Marvin Slingerland. He's the Senior VP for Agriculture for MMP, joining us out of very windy Lethbridge, Alberta. Marvin, how are you?
I am doing well, Lyndsey, and we have not had that much wind in southern Alberta this May. So,
what?
And we're actually been blessed with a couple of weeks of cloudy weather and some rain showers coming through. So it's been nice.
That's have you wondered what you did right? Like you clearly have been very good. If Mother Nature is going to do that,
I did lead the country for a week and a half, so maybe that was why.
So there you go. All right. Yes. Okay. So it is though. Here we are. It's hard to believe. May 23rd today. Kelvin, when you're telling me about where the crops are at, and I look around outside here, just outside of Ottawa, we've got corn that you can make out rows. But it has been so cold. We are in this unseasonably weird cold spell that is sort of holding everything up as far as advancing. And so it makes it feel like it's not, late May, but it is. And it's kind of a mind twist for me. So trying to get into it, trying to think about the fact that, by 10 days from now, we're well into June. So hoping everything's in the ground. But for today's issues panel, we have several things to cover. And one of the big ones, Monday is a big day here in Ottawa. Kelvin, let's start with that. We are going to see the Parliament begin sitting again next week. And we saw from Prime Minister Mark Carney a mandate letter for everyone. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Justin Trudeau, well, and the prime ministers before him have issued mandate letters to individual ministers, basically giving them directions, things that they're supposed to accomplish. It's a checklist. Let's get this done. These are all things that our government would like to do. In the past, there was a different mandate letter issued to each minister, and so under the Trudeau government, those mandate letters were made public, and we always paid close attention to them because they were basically marching orders to the Minister of Agriculture and Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the department. This week we saw the new Carney cabinet get together for their first meeting retreat, and at the meeting, Mark Carney issued a mandate letter, but it's just one mandate letter to all of cabinet. And so there are 7 main points on here. I think none of them are really surprising in terms of what they are. A lot of it lines up with what was talked about during the election campaign in terms of the number one priority of this 7 is establishing a new economic and security relationship with the U.S., building one Canadian economy by removing interprovincial trade barriers. Number 7, though, on the list, I think they maybe said this more overtly in this mandate letter than Carney has said until now, and that is to spend less on government operations. And so cuts are coming, and that's something that I think everybody kind of expected and has been alluded to, hinted at, but maybe not said that directly. And so I think that's maybe the point out of these 7 priorities that caught my eye the most in terms of being pretty overt in saying that there are going to be cuts to government spending going forward.
Marvin, what do you think? Having sort of a 7.1 letter, is that better? Is that worse than having individual letters? What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic idea personally, because I think it sends the same direction to every ministry, and everybody should be on the same page and making decisions based on those 7 points. But what actually got me excited the most about that letter was actually the preamble to the 7 points, where it actually states that the purpose of the government is to drive economic activity, increase productivity, make decisions that will increase flow of goods across the country. So I think for agriculture in general, I think that message is good, and hopefully it resonates throughout the government and provincial governments as well.
It's a really good point. Yeah, go ahead, Kelvin.
I was just going to jump in. I agree that the language, this is a continuation of the language that Carney had during the campaign, talking about productivity and economic growth and importance on that, which is a shift from what the Trudeau last 9.5 years, what this government was focused on. And so I think this is encouraging evidence that this government is changing direction somewhat in that way, even if the cabinet ministers haven't changed a whole lot. I do wonder whether having this overarching mandate letter, though, whether could create conflict between ministers. They've been tasked with coming up with identifying how they and their departments can specifically contribute to each of these 7 priorities. And in the coming weeks, Carney has asked them to meet with him and come up with key goals and measures of success, KPIs on how to evaluate these results. And so I wonder whether, say somebody wants to, well, I'm not sure I have any good examples that come to mind, but there could be potential for conflict here if one minister thinks this is the best way to accomplish this goal and another minister says, hang on, that may affect, say, for example, a minister wants to reduce the temporary foreign worker program and says that makes a case for supporting or helping with making housing more affordable in some areas. Well, of course, we'd expect our agriculture minister, Heath MacDonald, to speak up and say, hang on, our food industry relies on temporary foreign workers, and these are important for keeping our food costs down and keeping costs, which is number 3 on the list, is bringing down costs for Canadians. So that's where I think I wonder whether we're setting this up for a bit of conflict between ministers, potentially. I agree that the overall message, like you said, Marvin, is good. Just I'm curious how it's going to be followed through on.
Marvin, it's almost like it's complicated to run a country, and sometimes you have to coordinate across departments. It's almost like that.
Yeah, and hopefully the departments will talk with each other and get aligned on goals and priorities. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the refresh. Like I think it's really, really good language, and hopefully, like Kelvin, you said, like a lot of the cabinet ministers are the same. So hopefully they adjust from their previous mandate and move on.
I'm sort of, and again, I've been off for a week, busy here. And so I've been sort of taking in all of that's been happening, like with the cabinet, et cetera, sort of secondary. And I'm still trying to reconcile sort of, Marvin, as you point out, sort of what we heard during the election, what we heard post-election, what we're seeing in the mandate letter and the language we're using, but also the cabinet selection. Like, I'm having a hard time rectifying the two because there does seem to be a disconnect there.
Yeah, I can't comment on the cabinet selection, but yeah, the appearance, I expected something different based on the language during the election, but maybe he's looking at a refresh and with people who are used to running the department, and maybe they're able to shift direction quickly and faster than a brand new cabinet minister. And maybe that's the theory behind it. But
yeah. Kelvin, we also did find out this week we will not get a budget. So we know that Parliament is coming back early next week, but only sitting for a couple weeks. But we're not going to get a budget. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to me, it's disappointing because that is where a lot of the detail as to what the government's priorities are and the ways that they plan on executing on these priorities it comes through the budget, and it's been we haven't had a budget since last spring, and the fall economic update was late. It was only delivered in December, and now I think Carney this week said that he is planning to issue a budget, not just a fall economic update, in September, October, in the fall time frame. So we'll have to see how much detail we get out of that. The government does still have to pass its spending bills, that the estimates, that kind of thing, so that it does still fund itself. But so there's still some of that happening. But the communications exercise of a budget is a place where governments can be held accountable, and where the public can it encourages debate around what the government's priorities are. And that's too bad we're not going to have that. And on top of that, this mandate letter should expect, and I guess the throne speech next week, to potentially have as much detail as we're going to get from the Carney government as to what their priorities and next steps, actual concrete action items, are going to be in the coming months.
Mm-hmm. So once again, Marvin, and I mean, what you do in a day is the running of the business side. So we have mandate letters, good, or mandate letter. We have some direction. How do we run, as Carney says, running Canada like a business without a budget?
It's a good question. And like in some media sources, there is the excuse that the government has to plan for the G7. I'm pretty sure the budget department's separate from everything else. And in theory, it should be a live budget and live numbers. And and I'm glad it seems like the government caved into pressure to at least deliver a budget in the fall. And I think it's important that investors also know where we sit as a country, and because we need to attract capital to Canada as well. And I think we're running it one budget every 2 years. It's not a good message to investors.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't, every 2 years seems a bit of a stretch for a country. Yeah, I agree. Okay, we've got to take a quick break. Oh, sorry, Kelvin, go ahead.
I do wonder whether one of the reasons they may be also kicking this down the road is maybe the budget wouldn't look too great in terms of, like, for example, the last update, what were they banking on? $20 billion in revenue from tariffs, and most of those tariffs are not in effect now. So if the revenue side is not looking great, then potentially it wouldn't look good for this new prime minister that was elected on his competency in the financial area, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Kelvin, are you saying the budget is political? How could you?
It's totally political. Yeah, it's a political exercise.
It absolutely is. Okay, all right. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll be back with more of the Friday Issues Panel right after this.
We have the financial tool you're looking for. A cash advance from Canadian Canola Growers Association is a financial tool for farmers that offers flexible short-term financing. Borrow your first $250,000 interest-free and the rest below prime. Put your advance to work in whatever ways make sense for your operation. Apply on over 50 commodities. Call our experienced team or visit ccga.ca. Cash advances are made under the Government of Canada's Advance Payments Program.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and your Eastern Canada Vaterstad dealer has product available now. This includes the industry-leading Carrier XL disc cultivator and the Tempo F high-speed planter. Designed to provide outstanding emergence, find your local dealer by visiting vaterstad.com. All right, bringing back in the Friday Issues Panel, I've got Kelvin Heppner with RealAgriculture and Marvin Slingerland with MNP. Before we move on from all the happenings of next week, King Charles is set to deliver the throne speech. Kelvin, is this that Carney loves the royal family and has a personal relationship, or is this a nod to the U.S. president's love of the royal family? Or is it both?
It could be both. I think it's more the latter. It's I think to definitely demonstrate Canada's sovereignty, which we've mentioned before is a bit of a mental exercise to say that it shows sovereignty, that our crown, that the person in charge, ultimately in charge, is in a different country. But it's sovereignty from the U.S. Of course, this stems back to the 51st state comments, which have definitely quieted down. And I do wonder whether Carney is maybe second guessing. Maybe we didn't need to do this. Maybe we didn't need to invite the king. That was actually the message that the U.S. ambassador to Canada this week. He said there's a lot of work to demonstrate sovereignty. Inviting the king, you could have just told us that you like that kind of thing. And the ambassador also said the 51st state was comments were in the past, that they'd moved on. There are too many other things going on right now. So I think it's to demonstrate Canada's independence from the U.S., but also to because of how it plays for President Trump and on Fox News and all of those types of things with the pomp and circumstance is certainly right up Trump's alley, stuff that he appreciates, as evidenced last week in his trip to the Middle East, how much the Saudis and others rolled out for him there.
Mm-hmm. Are we offering a plane or no? Because I don't think we have any planes to offer.
That competes, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a Dash 8 from Air Canada. Anyway, not quite the same, everybody. Not quite the same. Okay.
I heard the U.S. has an extra plane.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Yeah. I think so. Anyway, okay. Moving on to... we do have, for the next couple of weeks, a lot happening, of course, but the G7 meeting is happening middle of June in, of course, where Marvin's from, in Alberta, in Kananaskis. And many meetings are happening in conjunction with and leading up to that event. And we did have the Western Ministers meeting this week. Marvin, a big, so we did get sort of the communique that came out of that. Big focus, of course, on an energy corridor, on logistics, on potentially moving things through Canada's north and Arctic sovereignty. Did they get it right? Is it too high level? Did you see this as a productive sort of meeting between the Western premiers?
I think the real benefit of this, Lyndsey, is that everybody's starting to get on the same page across the country now, and the tariffs I think the tariffs actually started this discussion where we need to be more united as a country provincially and federally. And I think with this meeting and everybody coming out agreeing on energy corridors and economic corridors, I think it sends a message to the country and to the federal government that this is the direction the West wants. And we know that the West is underrepresented in Parliament, but I think this is a strong message. And hopefully this trickles into Ontario too, and Ontario stands up and says this is a good idea, and we just keep the snowball going across the country.
Mm-hmm. It is a very Canadian metaphor of keeping the snowball rolling. Also, yes. As an Ontarian now, I would say I support this message. Kelvin, what are your thoughts on the ministers' meeting? Is it detailed enough? Will it sort of drive this message home ahead of the G7?
I'll second what Marvin said in terms of this gets people on the same page. And in particular, BC Premier David Eby, I think there's a lot of eyes on how BC and its voters want to handle this situation, as we know that it's sometimes been difficult to get pipelines built through BC, or energy corridors, economic corridors, investment in port infrastructure sometimes is definitely a challenge there as well. So signal that this is a priority for him as well, I think maybe is the most noteworthy thing coming out of this. Certainly, Alberta and Saskatchewan have been on the same page on this for a long time. And Manitoba is usually on the same page as well. And there's talk in here about port development at Hudson Bay, which could be at the Port of Churchill. There's also talk about a site further south that might be better suited for development of a new port facility and could be access to tidewater there. And so, yeah, certainly looking real long term, but like Marvin said, the tariffs and some of the stuff on the trade front, certainly this is part of Canada looking to diversify its trade, and there's certainly been a turning point here in terms of people talking about this and making this a priority, and certainly good for agriculture because of all the exports and need for diversification and market development in terms of our agricultural exports from the prairies as well as from Eastern Canada as well. In Western Canada, we often seem to be more focused on it because we don't have as large a market in our backyard, such as the GTA type of thing.
It is the thing that, oh, sorry, Marvin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Kelvin, like, what is your thought about like a port in Hudson Bay, since it's your home province?
I think it's pretty exciting. I think the Port of Churchill idea has certainly had hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at it over the years. The Canadian Wheat Board used to be the main tenant there and kind of kept it afloat. And since the Wheat Board went away, the port has really struggled. Governments have thrown lots of money at it. I'm not sure that the Port of Churchill is the long-term plan unless the climate changes enough that that can remain open all year or have a much longer shipping season. Further south, though, there's some talk about, I forget the exact location, Port Nelson, potentially, I think is where there's been talk about development there, and that the geography is better suited for port development. And so I'm curious whether, this is 10, 20 years away type of thing, unless we're in a real crisis where the government's really prioritize this. So I think long term, it's got good potential. In the short term, though, I question every one of these announcements. And again, over the last few months, we've heard federal and provincial governments throwing large amounts of taxpayer dollars towards this. And I understand the aspiration that's there, but to me, I think we need to see some concrete movement. And I'm not sure how to. It's a tough call, I'd say, Marvin. I'm not sure I have a clear answer in terms of yes, we need to do this. No, but yeah. Right now, it seems like a lot of money's been spent on that rail line to Churchill that keeps getting damaged or doesn't stay operating through the swamp and the tundra, the muskeg up there. So there's got to be something that we can figure out, though. Engineers these days can work through a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We just need like trains that can become like, I don't know, like hydrofoil things.
Airships was.
Oh, perfect.
Is it Dr. Barry Prentice at the University of Manitoba? He's always had the idea of like bringing blimps back and exporting stuff north through moving stuff to communities up north. Cheap, slow, but the cost is apparently affordable. Okay. Got to figure out a model for getting that infrastructure in place.
Okay. I took a class with Dr. Prentice. Make blimps great again. Doesn't sound as good though, Kelvin. But maybe. No, it's kind of hilarious, but I mean, it's also great to think like really outside the box, right? Is like, okay, so how do we manage something like muskeg and permafrost and swamp and all these sort of like, these are real things we have to deal with. But you're right. From an engineering perspective, we have oil rigs in the middle of the ocean. So like we can do hard things. We just have to actually figure it out. I don't know if blimps are the way to go, Kelvin. I'll be honest. It's a fun idea. So we'll see. But also, I'm pretty sure we wrote an April Fool's column years ago about drones delivering things across the Rockies, delivering grain across the Rockies in Tupperware containers. So it sounds very similar. Sorry, Kelvin, go ahead.
Maybe one of the more promising signals in the last couple of weeks is the federal government has announced this funding for First Nations to invest in, or that they're going to work with First Nations in terms of allowing them to invest in some of these energy projects and in some of these infrastructure projects. And to me, that in the past, that's been certainly one of the hurdles that some of these projects haven't gotten through. And if the federal government is coming alongside Indigenous communities in terms of finding ways that they can benefit from some of this infrastructure development as well, I think that could potentially clear some of the roadblocks that we've had over the last couple decades to some of these projects.
Marvin, this really does come back to your point about capital flowing into the country. I mean, there's different projects that capital can flow in for. How important are things like energy and the logistics of moving some of this product that we do create, whatever it may be, agriculture or otherwise, and getting it out to the world?
Well, we are an export country, Lyndsey, and our transportation system and our ports are the backlog into getting more product out faster. And the more we can export reliably as a country, the more prosperous we will be. And I think it's really good that we have two conservative governments, two NDP governments coming out of the meeting agreeing that we need to improve our economic corridor. So I think that's a good signal that everybody's on the same page, and hopefully it translates into real action and not a decision and then it gets pulled back in 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. These are, Kelvin, to your point, these are 5, 10, 15, 20, 20. Like these are, yes, there's medium term, but like some of these are very long-term visions. And I think many of us have often been frustrated by the sort of 2-year, 4-year mentality of how long governments last in actually trying to get some of these projects through. So Kevin, I guess before we go to a break, do we feel that there is the impetus here between the provinces to actually potentially commit to some longer term visions here?
I don't know. This is it's a good signal, and this is again, Sean. If Sean was here, he would say in Canada we often talk a lot about things and don't necessarily put those words into action. And this is more talk. So I guess that's a first step. And I think if anything, over the last couple decades, the last few months with the tariff threat and U.S. 51st state and souring of things there, which seems to have gone on the back burner here the last couple of weeks and maybe de-escalated. Certainly that has triggered a lot more discussion about this than we have seen for a long, long time. And I think that, again, is good for exporting commodities. But whether this... was it Churchill that said never waste a good crisis or something? There's a quote about not wasting a crisis, right. The opportunity in a crisis. And I'm not sure that the level of crisis is as high as it was a couple months ago when we were facing the potential of much higher tariffs into the U.S. and that type of thing. So I'm not sure the urgency will be there, although there is good reason. This is a question for Carney and his government, I guess, this is why we need a budget. This is why we need evidence of plans and actions that the government is looking to take and direction that they're planning to give to the market, to businesses and investors.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I think if you were to use mainstream media, the legacy media as like your gauge, it seems like the temperature has been turned down significantly, except if you take note of what's being reported, now it's things like, shutdowns of certain plants, and it's laying off of workers, and it's those sorts of things. So it's like the sensationalism might have turned down, but the actual economic reality and the very not good stories are the ones that are actually coming out now. Because let's face it, as much as we may not be in this like super volatile tariffs on, tariffs off, whatever, we are in still a state of increased tariffs and a much thicker border. And so there are still many things we need to figure out here, people. Just because we're not hearing about it constantly doesn't mean that all the tariffs have been lifted and everything's fine. It's not. So that's definitely still, I find anyway, it's sort of an interesting turn in how we're reporting on things. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be back for our last segment here with the RealAg Issues Panel right after this.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today. How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. Well, Sean takes some much-needed time off, much deserved, I suppose, maybe. Join the Saskatchewan Stock Growers Association at their AGM June 8th to 10th in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Registration is now open. Visit skstockgrowers.com for more information and to register. Fun fact, people from Moose Jaw are known as Moose Javians. And someone who, of course, knew that already is Kelvin Heppner joining me. And Marvin, did you know that they're called Moose Javians?
I have never heard that, Lyndsey.
Oh, it is true. You can look it up. Please Google it. Okay, so that's your fun fact of the day. Okay, we've got a few things to go through in our last segment here, and yes, we'll talk a bit of hockey. I did want to quickly touch on the shadow cabinet that has been named as well. Kelvin, any big surprises in the Conservative shadow cabinet?
Well, I guess a couple notable things. I don't know if surprises. One is how large it is. There's 74 MPs named to the Pierre Poilievre kind of went Oprah there in terms of handing out cabinet posts or shadow cabinet posts, critic posts to a lot of MPs. John Barlow returns as Conservative Shadow Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, which he's been on that file for a while now, and certainly well-versed and well-spoken and knows the file inside and out, and I think that farm groups will be pleased to see that continuity. Did notice they dropped the food security part of his title. Last time around when he was appointed Shadow Minister of Agriculture, it was Agriculture, Agri-Food, and Food Security, so I'm not sure if that means anything. And then there were some names left out of the Shadow Cabinet that I think were maybe somewhat surprising. Jamil Javani, Andrew Lawton, some of the more outspoken, you could say right-wing or conservative voices on social media and in legacy media that joined the Poilievre campaign were not named to the shadow cabinet. So I expect they will still have prominent roles in getting those social media clips at committee and in the House of Commons. But yeah, I guess I'm not sure how much to read into it. It's kind of like the Carney cabinet last week. There's a lot of different ways to interpret this, and they're in opposition. There's not a whole lot of stuff to read into maybe how the opposition shadow cabinet gets formed, because it could definitely change. And I certainly doubt Poilievre would face huge criticism if he came into government with a 74 person cabinet. He'd certainly pare that down to probably half that size.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's a shadow cabinet. It's not an actual cabinet. We haven't really talked about where Poilievre is at right now. Apparently still living in the official residence of the official leader of the opposition, but not filling that role, right?
Andrew Scheer had that title, but I think Scheer can just
that's right.
let Poilievre live there for now, kind of thing.
So he's effectively squatting, which seems interesting, but like with the blessing of the official leader of the opposition, who is Andrew Scheer. Marvin, we'll touch on this. We don't know when the by-election will be, but Poilievre, we do know, is going to run in an Alberta riding. Is it a slam dunk? I feel like it is.
Based on the stats, it should be like 80% of the people vote Conservative in that riding. Likely one of the safest seats in Canada. Okay. So it should be a slam dunk, but hopefully he takes it seriously and pounds of pavement and the gravel roads, and he should be elected. And will he need to learn to play bunnock?
Marvin's like, no. Maybe not.
You keep throwing things at us, Lyndsey.
I don't know if that's not an Alberta thing. Like
it is too.
That's Saskatchewan.
No, Concert, Alberta has the giant bone. Help me out here, everybody. Okay, listeners.
Yeah. Is that in? I thought this riding he's running in is Calgary, isn't it?
Yeah, but you still have to learn bunnock, do you not? Okay. Maybe not. I haven't been in Alberta.
I think August sometime. It's August, late August, probably is when that by-election. The way the timelines work, the soonest it could happen, I think, is August.
Yes. I somewhat joke that he's squatting, but he's not really. In that, exactly to your point, Marvin, it is assumed he will win the seat. It seems to be very secure, and that when he does, he will step in, of course, as official leader of the opposition, which is different than just his role right now. It comes with, living at Stornoway, and of course, some extra money and of course privileges in the House of Commons because of right now. It does seem strange that we had a prime minister who didn't have a seat for like 9 days. And then now we've got a leader of the opposition, not officially, that doesn't have a seat. It's just a very weird world for all of us trying to make sense of this.
That's the new normal ever since November.
Yeah, everything's just a little, it's the upside down. It's just a little strange. Okay. Speaking of, though, the upside down, let's talk about the states for a little bit. We did see this week a new tax bill that was rolled out. And I can't believe this is real, but it is titled the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I feel like I'm making that up, but I'm not. Marvin, high level thoughts anyway on this bill as far as what impact it may have for Canada.
Yeah, the big beautiful bill. And again, it just adds more complexity and more things for Canadians to look at in the future. And I think Trump's big issue was with our digital services tax on people providing digital services in Canada, and also other countries. Like other countries have put a similar tax in. And Trump is trying to say, well, this is a U.S.-based business, and we don't want to be punitively taxed based on the treaty. And he's putting in extra penalties if we don't remove that tax. And some of them are substantial eventually. If Canadians are invested in the United States, there could be a huge withholding tax that you potentially cannot get back in the future. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely sending a signal, and I hope the government actually really looks at this, because it would have a massive impact on Canadian individuals and Canadian corporations.
Mm-hmm. Kelvin, your thoughts? Have we not? I mean, overall, yes, thoughts, but the digital services tax, or this whole side, this very much an irritant between Canada and the U.S. I feel like we don't maybe talk about it as much as we should, like overall. In that it does seem to be a really big trade irritant, but we don't seem to, at least mainstream-wise, be talking about it all that much.
No, and well, yeah, somewhat it's still new, and so I think that's part of it. And I think in some ways the Canadian government, from a negotiating perspective, probably doesn't want to just give it away now when we're headed into trade talks with the U.S. It's potentially it's a big card to play in upcoming CUSMA, USMCA review, renegotiation, whatever that economic and security agreement will look like that Mark Carney refers to in that way. So. Yeah, and I think in terms of the impact of this big, beautiful bill on Canada, I think another part of this is the investment in Canada and capital flows that Marvin alluded to earlier in the show. And just in the big picture, if there are tax cuts and tax advantages to being based in the U.S., it's going to make it even more difficult and more important that the Canadian government set up our tax framework that we can be competitive and continue to attract investment, especially in agriculture, from an agriculture perspective, in our value add processing, that type of thing, those sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And to add to that, Kelvin, and I think it's important that with a country like Canada, the United States, that are so integrated economically and geographically, our tax systems need to be aligned quite closely, because otherwise it's just our goods are not going to flow, or we won't get the investment we need in Canada either.
I think it is, and here we are being a very exciting show talking about tax rules. So thank you, Marvin, for this one. But it's something that I don't think everyone actually thinks about, but when you dig into it, it actually makes a huge difference as to where exactly that money flows, about where business flows, about where all those sorts of things. And you're right, as integrated as we are with our neighbors to the south, a change in a certain tax or tax level can really shift where money flows in a really big way. And so it is actually incredibly important, I think, that there are people far smarter than me making sure that this stays front and center. And Kelvin, as you mentioned, we are heading into, as of next year, we'll be into, if not sooner, a USMCA renegotiation. Jury's still out on that one. As for, I find, and maybe this is for next week's show, people seem very at odds of should we renegotiate sooner or absolutely not, we should wait till the deadline. Kelvin, we don't have a ton of time. Just initial thoughts. Do we ride out the agreement as long as possible, or do you think we should be renegotiating sooner?
From a negotiating perspective, strategic negotiating perspective, I think Canada should do the same thing it did last time around, and that is slow play, and that is drag its feet, and that certainly gets the clock ticking on midterm elections in the U.S., which will put pressure on U.S. lawmakers and the Trump administration to sign a deal. And so I think that is probably going to be Canada and Mexico and other countries that are negotiating trade deals with the U.S. Slow playing right now, I think, will be the general way to do it. And I think we've already seen the impact of that, where the Trump administration has backed down. They haven't necessarily publicly admitted it, but they have retreated on some of their original very ambitious asks from other countries, and they've settled for much lower terms than that. So I think that will be Canada's approach as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Marvin, do you have thoughts on that, or would you rather start talking hockey? Because that's where we're going next.
We go to hockey, but I agree with the slow play approach. Given the current administration in the States, I think if we would rush to it, we're just signaling that we're scared. So I think a slow play is good.
Yep. We're not scared. Come on now. Elbows up, I heard. Okay. So, Kelvin, you and I can be friends again because neither of our teams are in the playoffs. And yes, you're right. I should be today wearing a Leafs jersey. However, it has not arrived in the mail yet. And now that there's a postal strike, it may never. Okay, there isn't quite a strike yet, everybody. They're just refusing to do overtime. But I can't actually even believe we're back to Canada Post threatening a strike. We haven't even talked about it today. But yes, at some point I will wear the stupid jersey because the Sens lost. But so did the Leafs. Anyway, so Kelvin, we've got the Cats and the Canes. Go Cats. And the Oilers and the Stars. Who are you picking between the Cats and the Canes? I think I already know.
Florida. I actually I don't think I'm joining you there. Yeah,
okay.
I think Florida is big, mean, strong, talented, and that's why it took the Leafs the Leafs they went 7 games, and I think again. I think it's always a good sign when you lose to the eventual winner, because then you can make the argument you were second best at least.
Okay. We're not going to talk about the collapse though, no? Okay. Well, just moving on.
It's nothing like the Edmonton collapse. I know the Edmonton fans are not feeling good, but
okay. And out of the Oilers and Stars?
I'm going to upset a lot of listeners here by picking
the Stars.
The Stars, yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, Marvin, can you and Kelvin still be friends? Who are you picking?
No, I'm signing off right now.
See ya. Bye.
He's in Southern Alberta. He's conflicted there.
Yeah, you're conflicted.
There's no confliction in Southern Alberta.
No?
Okay.
We're 50-50 Edmonton, Calgary, but I grew up long-time Oilers fan. All right. So I am picking Oilers and Canes.
Oh,
Canes are unlikely, but I would love to see a rematch of the whatever it was 20 years ago from Edmonton and Carolina. So.
Well, I'll split the difference because I'm taking Florida and the Oilers. So there you go. One from each of you. I have it here now. It's written down. We're not making a wager, but we'll just see. Someone gets bragging rights. Anyway, there we go. We've covered all our bases. Okay. It is, it's Memorial Day weekend down in the U.S. It is... Strangely, we here return to the end of May. So excited about that. Glad the crop is in. Glad we all got some rain. And I'm just hopeful it's going to warm up here because I will have everyone know I turned my furnace back on in May. I am not happy. It is supposed to go off May 1st and not come back on until Thanksgiving. And I had to turn it back on. That's how cold it's been, everybody. So Marvin, please send some of that beautiful weather this way.
It's coming.
Okay, thanks. All right. Thank you, of course, to Kelvin as well. I hope you get the rain you need to cover up any sins in the field. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have
all right.
Weekend.
Yes. All right. If you've got feedback on today's show, you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. You can, of course, call that feedback line 1-855-776-6147 or give us a follow on social media. I will talk to you next week, everybody. Cheers. Oh, hi there. Your host, Lyndsey Smith, is here, and I am introducing the bonus segment because I kind of messed up the order, and so my producer, Jay Strovey, said, hey, can you do like a little intro for the bonus segment? So that's what I'm doing. And in this bonus segment, Jay, could you just blur my face? That would be great because I just shoved a whole bunch of food in my mouth because it was lunchtime. But also, I wanted to send a quick shout out to Matt Van Miltenberg. He's down in Southern Ontario, and it's his birthday today. And he encouraged me to get into an argument on today's show. So that's the kind of friends I have, everybody. Anyway, happy birthday, Matt. And let's hop to the bonus segment with Anne Wasko, and it's the Beef Market Update. And this segment is brought to you by The Dirt, an economics podcast. From nutrient management to the latest weather, market, and ag trends, The Dirt, an economics podcast, is your place for farm smart topics to boost your profitability. Join Mike Howell on season 4 of The Dirt podcast, available now at Nutrient-Economics, that's economics with a K, nutrieneconomics.com. All right, joining me now for the beef market update, it is Anne Wasko with the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Welcome here, Anne.
Thanks, Lyndsey. Good to be here.
Yeah, we haven't got to do this in a while, so I am very excited. I will tell you, though, that I always listen to the beef market update. And I would imagine at some point we're going to have a conversation where it isn't some new amazing high, but this week may not be that week. Tell us what's happening on cattle prices on, we'll start with fats down in the States.
Yeah.
How did we do?
So, Lyndsey, it's not that week, but this is good. You get to you get to be in on these new record highs. So the U.S. was explosive again this week. We are going into, of course, their long weekend, Memorial Day weekend, right in front of us. But in Kansas this week, they jumped another $6 to $7 live. So they traded between $2.24 and $2.27 U.S. I'm having trouble getting my head around these numbers, or my tongue around these numbers.
Yes.
And Nebraska, they were $2 to $3 higher live, so from $2.30 to $2.31. And on the dress market, they were $3.60 to $3.70 delivered. That's $5 to $10 higher than last week. So just an explosive market again. Never say never. I don't know.
Yes. Okay, so let's pause for a moment, because obviously for those in the selling position, yay. Those having to buy, maybe not so yay. But there's obviously several factors that have brought us to this point. I want to unpack some of those. Right now, as you mentioned, Memorial Day, is this like peak demand for beef? Is this like a seasonal high?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for sure, this is a demand. And we talked about this a lot in 24. You know, we know what supplies are doing, and they're down, and maybe down a little bit more for some reasons we'll talk about as we go through these calls. But certainly demand has been the biggest driver. And just to identify that in particular this week, that wholesale beef market, that market that we watch to give us probably our best barometer of what's going on a week-to-week basis on demand, jumped $11 this week from last week. So the choice cutout closed at $3.61, and the select was $12 back. So again, as you say, this is the time to shine. Memorial Day, Father's Day is a big beef weekend. It's grilling season. I mean, so that part is normal, but these prices are far beyond most of our expectations for sure. And just to finish on the local, before we leave the fat cattle market, even in Western Canada, we saw the dressed market in Alberta at $5. So 500 a hundredweight, or $5 a pound delivered dressed. I got to figure out how I word these numbers now. That's steady to $5 higher than last week as well. So another new record high. I think when Canfax comes out with their average tonight, it'll be up around $3. Which again, I'm having trouble with these words. These numbers.
Right. Yeah. This isn't now. I guess nobody wants to rain on a parade, but realistically, what's the sustainability of this? And maybe we can talk about some of the things that are sort of working for this, but also maybe against it. I mean, what can we plan on numbers like this? Like, what are the indications going forward?
Well, certainly the demand piece will support timing from this perspective. So if you're going to look at that, then you would argue that once we get into the dog days of summer and, the peak demand is behind us, that the markets will work lower. I mean, historically, we see, a certain amount of change between the second half and the first half of the year. And that can be anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12% down. So we are expecting those kinds of things, but we're certainly coming off of higher levels I expect we'll be coming off of higher levels than we've seen in some time ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, but there are, of course, several pieces to this, and one of them is supply. And we do need to talk about, not just a shrinking cow herd, et cetera, but the screwworm issue between Mexico and Canada. What do we know right now about what impact that may have on placements?
Well, there's things that we can watch every month to give us a good barometer. So for example, this afternoon, the USDA will come out with their May 1 cattle and feed report for the U.S. So the guesstimates going into that report are on-feed numbers down 1.5%, April, and placements and marketing's down 3%. So that's what the trade's expecting. We'll see how the report comes out. And we won't, of course, with markets closed on Monday, we won't have a chance to see what futures think of this until Tuesday. But that placement number, now this is from April, and of course the border just closed again 10 days ago or whatever, I guess almost 2 weeks ago now. We'll see that show up in the May placement data. And again, that'll be a factor. How long does that last? Is this going to be with us for some time? If it is, between 1 million and 1.2 million head of feeder cattle not coming into the U.S. and not ending up in U.S. feedlot, don't forget they're still going to be in Mexico and being fed in Mexico. So you have to look at the big picture, but it certainly changes the U.S. perspective as we go forward. So there's some good things we can watch every week, and we'll talk about it, or every month in this case, and we'll talk about it on these calls as we go forward.
Right. And I think that's an important point. It's not like the cattle that would be moving to the U.S. suddenly disappear. It's just that it does disrupt where those cattle have been going, where they end up on feed, where they end up slaughtered. And certainly, and anyone who is involved in the cattle business, if you don't know what screwworm is, don't Google it while you're eating. It's disgusting. Okay, so I hope they get a handle on it because it is nasty. Okay, so let's bring it home though to Canada and to Western Canada. We did get some reports last week. We did also, and I do want to talk about this about fall delivery numbers and these first indications on calves. So where are we at there?
So for anybody that follows our internet video sales, the last several years, there's been more and more calves getting offered for fall delivery, in June and July as we go through the summer. And that's kind of starting to be mainstay. Well, we saw some calves on some of the sales last week, and there's certainly a lot more this week. And this is still May. So this is early. So some folks obviously testing the waters for what the fall calf market might look like. And certainly, surprise, I guess, can we be surprised any more than we already have been? But there was some 5.5 weight calves trading, over $6 a pound for October delivery, and it'll be interesting to see today. There was some yesterday, and there'll be quite a few more today. So once producers saw some of those numbers, I think they were quick to call up their selling agent and said, "Hey, let's test some calves on this fall market." So those prices are out of this world, out of this world. Yes,
makes all of us wish we had bought cattle 5 years ago. But we didn't. But for those of you who did, tip of the hat to you. Okay, so it is definitely something to watch because, of course, this could draw some of those placements out of the woodwork and test where that is. If it's anything like the lamb market, though, when you get a high like that, then suddenly all these cattle appear or lambs appear, and then things start to tick back down. So I guess we'll see where it lands. But as you mentioned, this is earlier, though. Like this is May, not June.
This is a little bit earlier, but again, you're going to just take what we normally would have sold, in June, July, and August, and move it ahead to May, June, and July. So we'll see what happens, but certainly it's creating some excitement as we go around to some of the brandings right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Which maybe this is where we'll end for today. You are, though, Anne, this is just, usually I try to find a high note to end on. I feel like this whole thing has been a high note except for that whole screwworm thing. But you do have your own branding coming up, and it rained in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, we've had rain, so things are greening up big time. Great timing for the rain in this part of Saskatchewan for sure. Yeah. And as we look forward to, like I say, we've been at some brandings, some neighbors' brandings, and ours is coming up. So it's kind of lots of reasons for smiles on the grounds and on our horses and all the way around. So it's good.
I do love those pictures. And it's a family affair. It's a community event. I do love it. I love that we still do these things. I think it's pretty cool. Let's hope it keeps raining. Because certainly, yeah. And I will tell you, I'm here based in Ontario, and I have conversations with people who have lived their whole lives here. And when I tell them how little rain falls in some areas of Western Canada, they don't believe me. So this is why we get excited about rain.
We do. I think our annual rainfall sometimes happens in days in other parts of the country.
That's right. Yeah, probably one event I've had, Anne, to be honest. So there you go. Okay. Thank you so much, Anne Wasko. every 2 weeks here on the Beef Market Update, here on RealAg Radio. Thank you so much. Well, I hope we get to talk again soon.
Yes, ditto. Have a great weekend.